And right now I'm walking us over to where we can see a few of the boats here. And we also have two special guests today. We have Bob Emser from the Art of Boatbuilding, and we have John Harris, who runs Chesapeake Lightcraft. But first, I wanted to show you a couple of really important boats here while everybody starts joining our live feed. Good morning from Cape Canaveral. Hey, Randolph. So it is a beautiful morning. You don't need to look at me. Let's look at the important, interesting stuff here. Neath is a really beautiful special race boat. Super tall rig. Fast, fast, fast. So here at the boat show, there's a lot of things here at the dock that are beautiful. They're not all for sale. Some people are just here to show them off. I don't know this boat. This is Narwhal. There's something else. Hi, Richard Ryder. Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday to you. We're just going to make our way over to our booth where we're going to be talking about tenders today. Important announcement about that. Good morning, good morning. Little Toot, really something else, isn't she? Look at that. Good look at Narwhal from Jamestown. Tell us where you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining us every Friday. This is a special live episode, and I'm just walking us over to the booth, but really wanted to show you some of these boats that are at the smaller boat dock here. Back there, do you see the one with the stack? That is a small steamboat with a really cool steam engine. Hopefully I'll do an Instagram post about that one. I'd love to get a boarder and watch them run it. Merlin is just my kind of boat. Roanne is a part of the museum's collection. She's a really... Yo, Cap! How you doing? I used to work for WoodenBoats. I know a lot of people here. Oh my goodness, we have a heron. Or no, this is an egret, excuse me. Y'all, this is an extremely brave egret. Dude. By the way, egrets look the way they do because their legs look like sticks and they look like clouds to birds. So it's their own kind of stealth. The first visitor to the show, right here. Ellie Dunton is going through, that right now they're raising money to restore her. She's the next big museum project here. And as we come in, gonna work our way down this row, visit with Bob and John and KP and Steve. These CNC Cut Molds, these things are pretty cool. Very precise molds, obviously. I think those are probably for Doris. I wonder, because that looks like Doris to me. I think this is probably Snedeker Yacht Yard's booth. There's a lot of pretty boats here, but there's also a lot of knowledgeable people, and that is really the magic of this show in particular. I had my eye on this beauty this morning. I'm going to get the story about her. My shadow there. But look at Bufflehead. What a detail. What a beautiful detail. Good morning, Bruce in Phoenix. Beautiful. This looks like a ton of fun right there. That big boomkin, she probably carries a ton of sail. So, if you were with us in Annapolis, you remember Chesapeake Lake Craft, if you watched that one or if you came to visit us. John is a designer. They sell beautiful kits. And really what they do is they write manuals, turns out. That's what John's company does. Mostly writing manuals for how to build these things.
I stopped using the word writing, though. It's no one wants to read about how to build something.
No one, yeah.
You want to see pictures of something being done.
Oh, there we go. So you do visual presentations.
We illustrate.
Illustrator.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's a hard-won lesson. Write that one down.
Write that down. So here's some examples of some nice rowboats. Although this beauty here, this is a bootlegger. That is one of Nick Shada's boats. Really, really, really lovely. But here we are, here at our booth, YouTube alley as it were. Get that turned on. And we're talking tenders today. And we got Steve here. We're turning on a microphone for him.
Hello, hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Is that a good sound?
Get you mic'd up so later if we walk away, you come with me. Yeah, it's a pretty good sound. Let us know how the sound is. Let us know where you're watching from. Morning, Bob.
Good morning. Good morning.
How close do I need to get
It
this?
should be able to just be on the table.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
like this, and it should pick everybody up.
Right.
And everyone will, they always let me know when they can't hear us.
That's good. That's good.
Yep. Well, good
How
morning.
you doing, Steve?
I'm tired, but doing all right.
Yeah.
A little twitchy being away from the shop.
I bet. I bet. Well, take it away.
Well, we had a big surprise, and I think Ann just announced that. So Bob Emser's here, and we're talking tenders. So if you probably can put that one together, what's going to happen here? So the Arabella obviously needs a tender, and we've looked at a few plans from the Atkin catalog, and in the past have talked to John Harris from Chesapeake Lightcraft about that, and taking these plans from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and putting a little more of a modern twist on them, because we can definitely build the tender a little tougher and a little lighter and a little more waterproof than they were able to back then. But the lines don't really have to change, the sail plan doesn't have to change, just some more modern tweaks. So John's been great help with kind of figuring out how many frames we need and how many layers of fiberglass or Dynel to put on it. He's kind of the technical wizard. And we saved a lot of things from Victoria. We have cedar planking, we've got mahogany, we've got some of her tamarack knees, and we're hoping to build the tender out of those. So I've had a few different people over the years ask to build the tender, and I've very kindly told them all that it was something that was really important and near and dear to me to do. But we are closing in on launch, and there's still a lot to do. And I've got to know Bob a bit over the years. He's comes out and helped with the shelf on Arabella, and we've become good friends. And he runs a channel called the Art of Boatbuilding. And
We have a few people saying they watch you, Bob.
nice.
Good morning to all of our Venn diagram of
Worlds
who are.
collide.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So Bob and I have become friends over the years, and he's wrapping up a Haven 12.5 and needed a project boat after that, and wanted to know what I had for plans for the tender. And Bob's a former bronze sculptor and an artist and does just absolutely incredible work. And he is one of the few people on this planet that I trust to give the mahogany and the cedar and these irreplaceable lumber from Victoria, and to create something I'm surely will be more beautiful than anything I would have made with it. So I'm very honored to have Bob taking this on, and we're here to kind of look at the plans and meet Bob and make that announcement.
If I may for a minute, when
And speak up, Kate, because
Oh,
it's over there.
okay.
You don't need to get closer.
when this discussion was coming together, Steve said, you know, I was telling Bob I needed a tender that I was sturdy and I'm just going to beat the crap out of it. I need to hose out and drag along and this and that. And Steve said, and Bob's response was, well, it can still be beautiful. And I thought,
It can still
that's
start
the
beautiful.
guy. That's more
can
like
still
it.
start
It can
beautiful.
still start beautiful. And I thought,
Yeah.
Bob's the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'm pretty honored that Steve has entrusted me with these amazing materials. Yesterday, coming down, I ran through Granby and checked out Arabella, and then we went through all of the lumber and the bronze and oh man, it's just a wealth of supplies. And I mean, some things, I've been looking at the plans, they've been on my shop wall for, I don't know, probably 3 months now, something like that. And I'm like, oh man, you know, just throwing it back there. But man, things really kind of congealed yesterday when Steve and I were talking about, like, you know, well, what kind of wood will we use for rub rail? What will we put on the in rail? What kind of, and it's like, oh, that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I've got some burled
Some cherry burl, yeah.
Cherry, oh, those will be good Orlock posts, you know. So it's
Seems like the fun part of the situation is picking what goes where.
yeah. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and you know, it is going to be a very functional boat, and it will be a beautiful boat.
Patrick
Just,
Cahill.
as Steve says, to start with.
To start with. It won't be when I'm done with it.
Then it gets a beautiful patina on it.
Yeah.
You know.
Eventually, we'll get that total boat, two-part epoxy on the inside, and just get it like the epoxy paint.
It might start with that.
Oh, I think
Yeah,
it's going.
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
start with that.
It's
yeah.
really
yeah.
nice and hard, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Beautiful scars. It'll have beautiful
Well, what I was going to say is
scars.
beautiful scars. Yeah,
Beautiful scars,
it'll be a
yeah.
tender that has seen some things and done some stuff.
Yeah.
Patrick Cahill says, can't think of anyone better able to do the wood honor. Way to go, Bob.
Nice.
Well, thanks, Pat. Yeah, Pat's one of my guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody's just joining us, we're here in Mystic. We're at Mystic Seaport at the WoodenBoat Show, and we're live here today talking about the fact that Bob Emser is going to build the tender. A couple people have talked about the name. Steve, can you talk about the name of the tender, please?
Yeah, so the name of the tender will be Victoria, and that is because it's built out of the remains of Victoria, and we have a really beautiful bronze nameplate with bronze letters from Victoria. So I'm hopeful that that'll be able to go across the transom
Oh, absolutely.
and
yeah.
carry on. So it'll be little Vicky.
Yeah.
Moving.
They're beautifully patinaed. They have this beautiful green patina on them, and so I'm looking at them, and while I'm driving down here, I'm thinking, I'm going to patina the screw heads, but I will figure it out.
I
will figure it
think
out.
we start with it bright.
The screw heads bright?
And the
Oh, you want to make the?
Yep.
Really?
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
The way I see it is Victoria earned her patina,
Got it.
and Arabella will also earn her patina.
Well, that-
and
I
if
like
and it's
it.
going to look funny on launch day having like a mix of patinaed things and unpatinaed things, and
Oh, yeah.
so I think if we just start with everything for launch bright, and then we can
So
make
Steve
sure that
really does want it to start beautiful.
it's more about it looking weird, like you said. Like, how do you get the screw heads to
Yeah.
patina,
Well, I
and
mean,
how
now-
and
yeah.
we have all of this old bronze that all patina differently, and
Yep.
you know, some of it's patina, some of it's just straight up corrosion. So I think to start with all of that the same and let it patina together,
Makes sense.
and have a little bit of control over it, so we make sure it actually patinas and not just corrodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the question is, do we use mothers on those letters?
Of course.
Of course.
And maybe
Great.
a little, what's that wax? Renaissance wax.
Renaissance wax.
Yeah, that's what
All right.
really keeps it for at least half a season.
Yeah,
For
we're,
half a season.
Well, if you want it to stay bright and shiny,
Yeah.
that because I've had a lot of people ask because of all these bronze parts that I've been making for my boat, and they're how do you keep it shiny? Well, I mean, over the years I used to use a lot of copper in my sculptures, and the copper, the clients liked it. Oh, it's bright and shiny. I love it that way. Well, of course, it doesn't stay that way. So I started playing around with sealants and things like that. None of them work. So
yeah.
the best thing is to leave it natural and just maintain it. and wax is the best thing. Just
It turns out also that the patina is protection.
correct. Correct. It is actually, and in the sculpture world, some sculptures will put a patina on it immediately, like with acids and. I mean, there's a whole variety. In fact, I have a big book that's how to patina bronze, and there's like any color you can imagine. There is a chemical that you can get it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. I mean, you can make it red.
If you want to use that chemical
Yeah.
to make it.
It's
Do
a
we do,
little
do,
bit
we do
like
red bronze hardware on the boat? That'd be
no.
different.
I'm sorry,
No,
that
we
sounds
do
hot
not.
as hell.
There might be a little hot rod looking.
A little hot
but-
rod looking.
Yeah, but it's a little.
On that old style
But
gaff
you're right.
catch.
Patina does protect it. It's like gun bluing on steel.
Yep.
It doesn't rust if you take care of it. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think John's about to come over, hopefully. And can you tell John that we're ready for him? Over here. And so, what are we looking at for the plans here? What's the plan name? What length? And can we get a couple of particulars?
Absolutely, of course, Ann. So the plans that we've narrowed down to here are Handy Andy and Faye, and we're going to build neither and both. So our issue is that Handy Andy is pretty small. So if you look, where is it here? Handy Andy is 8 foot long with a 7 foot water line and a 4 foot breadth. So it's a pretty short little chunky tender. And then Faye is 10 feet long, also with a 4 foot breadth. And she's a little bit longer, but otherwise they're very similar boats. If you compare the lines, they're not hugely different. Handy Andy is basically just squashed. And we can't fit a 10-foot boat on top of the housetop. It just, with the main traveler and everything, it will not work. But we could fit a 9-foot boat. So the idea here is to take short and chunky Handy Andy at 8 and Faye at 10, and basically make an Atkin-esque boat using the 2 lines that comes in at 9 feet.
Yep. And John's the person who can tell us if it's safe to make the boat 9 feet instead of 10 feet.
So you want a little dinghy.
We want a little dinghy, yes.
He wants
So-
a dinghy,
I have a
a
little
dinky
dinghy
dinghy.
as well.
Just to brief you, John, we've got kind of the central microphone here. We're going bluegrass band style and
Okay.
talking around this. And so,
I haven't met John. I'm Bob Emser.
Oh my
Bob,
goodness
John,
gracious.
nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be building the boat.
Oh, yes, you're strip planking it, aren't you?
Correct.
I'm sorry. Yeah. It's great. It's the best way.
Yeah.
It's the best way. Just keep telling yourself that.
That-
But it's
Oh, yeah.
true. Yeah.
Actually, I'm looking forward to it because I
But
think
it's very
a-
zen. You know,
Yeah.
the strips are small, and you work, and you've made 3/4 of an inch of progress around.
So it's not like Carvel planking where
Right,
Yeah.
where you
7
can get
planks
6
and
or
I'm done.
7, you know. So that whiskey for the whiskey plank tastes especially fine.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna put, like 100 planks on the boat?
I mean, seriously, it does. I mean,
Yeah.
you're like, is this how far I've gotten? And it's only, you know, if I've been at this for 8 days.
That'll make riveting video.
So,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
stripping party
Oh,
is my recommendation.
stripping party.
Yeah,
Got
I
it.
mean, just you're hovering with your Japanese pull saw to do the nice fits, but everybody else is pontooned and having a good time, and you can make a lot of progress on a strip planked boat that way. But, it takes a lot of them. And so this is the subject boat.
Yeah, the pair of them. So we've got Handy Andy, and we talked last time about Faye at 10 feet being a bit better.
Sure.
And KP and I went back with the plans and the housetop. And what we realized is that 10 feet is going to be real tough to fit, but 9 feet will fit beautifully.
Great.
And if we put the transom facing aft, we can put the hatch right in here.
Excellent.
And have it nestle in between the seat. We might have to shorten the aft seat a little bit to get it to go, but that's not really a big deal. And then depending on how things shake out, the stem of the boat will either butt up right against the mainmast, or we'll set it off to the side, but it's going to protrude just very slightly past the mainmast, which should work out fairly well.
The base of the main mast will be a busy place.
Yep.
And, you know, if it fits, just fits on paper, then on those days when you really need to get the dinghy aboard and it's blowing squirrels out of trees and you're in a hurry, then just fitting will suddenly become, it doesn't fit.
Yep.
And no amount of salty language and implication will make it fit. So, you know, I would encourage you to just maybe go another 4 or 6 inches less, you know, because the Murphy's Law is always in effect on cruising sailboats.
Yeah.
In the least convenient times. Especially.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So, yeah.
You get squirrels landing on the boat.
They're all blowing
There
out of
aren't
the
even
trees.
trees around here.
You know it's windy when squirrels land on your boat.
Should we be going out?
Well, I mean, usually
We're
it's,
already out.
you know, the hurricane is coming or something.
Yeah.
You know, you've just gotten out the last 70 fathoms of chain or whatever, and better get the dinghy aboard if you want to keep it. So, you know, that's just how it goes. Not like in the movies. Yeah. So, where does the boat starting lengthwise? Is it?
So we have a couple
It's
options.
at
We've
10,
got
right?
Faye at 10, which we can shrink, or we have Handy Andy at 8, which we can enlarge.
All right, and what's so 4 feet wide? Okay, that's good. And this one is how wide? Same.
4 feet.
Okay, yeah. So boats scale up better than they scale down.
Okay.
It has to do with the physics of stability, about which I'm not truly qualified to speak, except that I've gotten it wrong a bunch of times. So,
Okay. Hey, I've learned that I learn more from my failures than my successes.
And there
When
are
you
a lot
try
of-
something
yeah.
and you get it right first time, you learn like nothing.
it's way more interesting on a podcast too if you've screwed it up than if you've got it perfect every time.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk to a smarty pants anyway? But so yeah, you know, larger boats scale down are off are almost always more tippy, and
Okay.
the stability varies roughly, very roughly, as the cube of length. So you're making a 10-footer or an 8-footer, it's probably going to be, it might very well be tippy. I get a lot of folks who want to take a 20-footer and make it a 10-footer, and that's just sort of like, you know, one continuous motion from the dock and then into the water.
Okay.
And, don't ask me how I know. But they're essentially, I mean, I think they're almost the same hull, but
Yeah, I mean, just glancing at them, they're not much different.
they are almost the same boat. But, you know, bless the Atkins. When you draw a boat this pretty, who cares if they've done it a couple of times, you know, or more than a few times.
I mean, 8 and 10 feet. That's
I mean, I
it's
have
a
to
solid
say,
difference.
I think you could probably flip a coin, but if you're going for 9 feet, I would go for the more upright transom, if possible. Yeah, maybe so. And maybe I might encourage you to make it even more upright and just gain that couple of more inches of waterplane, which is, you know, going to have a lot to do with stability. So maybe you half
So
that
we do it
angle,
this
something
way.
like that. Now, with the caveat, if you're going to put the demon outboard upon the thing, you've got to have 15 degrees. But I'm hoping you don't.
No, the plan is to have a tender that rows and sails very nicely, which is hopefully this, and then to get a very small inflatable roll-up that we can stick an outboard on when you really
Really need to get there fast.
get there
Did I hear
fast
you
and got to
say
buck the current.
Deflatable.
The deflatable, yep.
Heretic.
I know. But there's a practicality.
There is that. I mean, you know. if
And then
you're-
when the
if you're
deflatable
coming back from
deflates,
the-
you still got
know,
this one.
if you're coming back from the pub and you're absolutely trousered, the nice thing about a deflatable is that you can just aim it at the boat
Roughly.
Yeah.
and just keep driving until
You
impact,
bounce off. Yeah, and then
And-
you know you're there.
and you know you're there.
Yeah,
You've gotten there.
yeah.
So I mean, that's one good thing I could say about a deflatable. I'm struggling to find anything else though. But
You could get one of those
right,
inflatables.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, practicality. I mean, you do have some deck space on this boat, right? I mean,
There's a decent amount of deck space.
You know, so-
Yep.
you know, 2 tenders is always smart if you have the luxury, because that means that whoever's still in the boat isn't stranded. You know,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's good, and you know, one can be the pickup truck, and one can be the fine Daimler sedan, so to speak, that you impress people with. But you know, a nice pram with a big fat, you know, rub rail, you know, padded rub rail. You know, maybe it can be worked in somewhere. And am I a snob? Yes. No, you know, like, I think with age, I'm starting to feel okay about being a snob.
Yeah.
About dinghies, but I haven't really ever had any good experiences with deflatables. So I don't, you know. But I mean, what if the outboard doesn't start? I mean,
Well, that's why there's two in this one, Rose and Sails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time I was in somebody's deflatable was in Georgetown in the Bahamas, and you know, it was a nice boat I'd helped deliver from Florida. It was a lovely boat, but this very tattered deflatable with a, you know, rigid bottom and an outboard, and it weighed 1,000 pounds, and it was very wet. You know, just, you know, it's a round tube, right?
Yeah.
And so half of it is curving down, you know, and if there's any kind of chop at all, it, you know, pretty soon my shore-going rig was wet, and that won't do it all. But the worst thing was that
We've
you
got
know,
dinner to be too.
no, seriously, you know, the funny thing was, it had an outboard that started, but it had the outboard had lost its way at some point, and now it would electrocute you if you held the handle. I mean, like you know, you would, you know, briefly lose consciousness. You know, so it was being used. So we would sort of like set the tiller, you know, maybe with a piece of wood, and kind of point the inflatable, you know, where it was we wanted to go. But if you held it, you would, you know, your hair would stand on end, and you would bite your tongue. So.
Yeah, I'm wondering how it made the KP's like, where's
This
the
is a nice
connection?
boat you delivered, you said?
It was, yeah, it was very nice. I mean, it almost sank, but other than that, I mean, it was really, a
Cool.
lovely
Great.
boat. I mean,
Great.
just I think the electronics suite alone cost more than all of the boats I've owned in my life. But yeah, anyway, outboards, you know.
So yeah, no outboard for the plan on this one.
Yeah.
So you're saying to make the transom
Yeah,
a
I
little
would make
steeper?
it a little bit, you know, yeah. You can almost go all the way to vertical, and it won't be ugly. I mean,
Okay.
it's got such a pretty sectional shape. I mean, you know, it's no easier or harder to build whatever the angle is. You know, picking off that changing bevel is interesting. But you know, that's just one of the ways to maybe offset any stability lost in going from 10 feet to 9 feet or something like that. And you know, the only thought I have, having gotten this wrong a bunch of times, is to have more station molds than you think when you're strip planking. And you know, you're going to tell me in a minute, you know, what you've decided on thickness, but this thing has a lot of shape. It has a lot of shape. I mean, it's a beautiful dinghy, and there's, you know, the shape is changing all the time into a, you know, a nice. It's got this just hint of a little bit of hollow in front. It's going to be very, very pretty. And strips are generally thin, and compared to, say, carvel planking, you know, they're not self-fairing. You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
you kind of get this like starving
you
dog
can do
look.
this.
You know,
Yeah.
right? You know, with the strips. So each time I've done a strip planked dinghy of this, you know, at this size, I've added more and more stations, and you know, I have a 10-footer in my portfolio. The stations are literally on 8-inch centers, I think. But, I mean, it's got kind of crazy, you know, it's got that little hollow going out to a fairly broad. So a lot of things going on, and so when you loft it, I would suggest no less than 12-inch spacing, and then up, especially up here in the bow, and he's already done this, but you know, add another one that's at 6 inches.
Sure.
And but you almost can't have too many, you know.
Yeah.
Of course, the thicker the strips, then the less trouble. But
I guess that's the other question: is how thick
Yeah.
this strip should be, because we'll be cutting our own out of
The cedar,
Victoria's
yeah.
skin.
Now, is this one of his sort of canvas?
Canvas
that's
cover,
right.
yep.
So we're going to forget about all that. That's so like 1930s.
Yeah, and we want to cut. I mean, obviously having the lightest weight tender possible, hauling it up on
Sure,
deck and everything else. So, yeah, real technical questions for you would be how light we can go with the planking, what we should put on it for sheathing, how many frames we can ditch, basically anything that we can scale down and do a little more modern to shed some weight out of it.
I don't think Nevin's had anything to say about strip planking with epoxy and fiberglass, but didn't Herreshoff have a book of rules?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
All right, well, just
Herreshoff-
leave those on the shelf.
I think Herreshoff said that if God wanted boats to be plastic, he would have grown plastic trees.
I think he also said that plywood was only good for the bottoms of drawers. But, he said a lot of other
And you
things.
should
He
never
said a lot of
paint-
other
and
weird
never
things
paint a
too,
boat
but,
black.
Yeah.
That's right. That was Captain Nat. I think
Yeah.
who said that.
Yeah.
But, yeah. You know. Okay. So engineering. I have a music degree, so immediately discount anything I say by a certain amount. But I think that
That's like me with an art degree. You're in
Right.
trouble, buddy.
And me with an English degree. What am I doing here?
Masters of Education.
we all end up building boats. So
KP's the only qualified one.
Oh yeah, no, gender studies and political science.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, no, I
Bye.
yeah,
Okay.
no.
okay, between us, we
We'll
know
make a
almost
boat.
we know almost nothing.
Yeah,
about
that's a boat.
Right. Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the theory is like this is what you call sandwich construction. So you're strip planking it,
Yep.
and in this scenario, you've got to glass both sides of the material. Strip planking, it can't handle wet dry cycles. You know, it's gonna turn into a potato chip. You know, shape wise. So you're glassing both sides, and so that's kind of the classic, I-beam. Think of it. You know, you've got a flange and a flange, and then a riser in between. And so the further apart you can get the two skins, then the stiffer the boat is. And there's some magic perfect thickness, and it's going to be thicker than the usual. We call them kayak strips because everybody has 1/4 inch thick Western red cedar bead and cove kayak strips. So we actually have a machine, and that's the only thickness it makes. So whenever I've had to make a strip plank boat that had thicker planking, I had to go run it through the table saw like a normal person, and so I think that dinghies get punched and beat up and
Yep.
and knocked around, and so I would argue for somewhat thicker, but you still need the glass. So so the engineers would say, the thinner you go, the thicker you're going to have to make the glass to still have some punch resistance.
And the glass is going to weigh more than the cedar.
Sure,
So-
absolutely, yeah.
So the thicker the cedar,
That you can go down. You can go down in the weight of glass,
Right.
theoretically, anyway. I mean, within reason. Oh, you can do some.
What did I miss?
You can do some calculus for us here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's some happy
Miss
medium
gender
where
studies.
between the glass weight, you can go have very very lightweight glass, and have this beautifully engineered structure that just you've got to tie a kite string to it, to keep it from flying away. But of course, in real life, you're hitting things all the time. So so I thought about this just now for a minute, for about 10 seconds, and I'm going to say that. Well, this depends on what species of wood you're gonna use.
Cedar.
Cedar. Okay, so okay, good. So Atlantic, Alaskan, Western red.
Victoria.
Victoria's
Victoria
Cedar.
cedar.
Victoria's Cedar.
I know.
It's
boat built in
it's
1920.
100-year-old white cedar.
So seriously, you're actually going to
We're going to
cycle.
build
Yeah.
the boat out of all of.
That's wonderful. And
So-
that's so cool.
So we have like literally a boat's worth of old cedar planking
That you can
that's
just
in
rip
good
down.
shape that we
That's
can rip
wonderful,
down.
yeah.
And then we have a whole bunch of old growth Honduran mahogany to
And,
use.
and what thickness is it now, Steve?
The cedar?
Yeah.
It's at least an inch.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think giving this sectional shape, the width of each strip
Strip.
should probably be 3/4 of an inch. You might be able to go up a little bit, but you're going to end up sanding off
That'll be work.
a lot of.
If it's an inch, once it goes through the planer down to
So,
quarter,
so 3/4 of an inch, and then
table saw.
that's gonna cut down on your sanding some. So, okay, and then so thickness wise, I would say that a dinghy of this burden, you should probably make the strips about 3/8 of an inch thick.
Okay.
And then that's
Makes sense.
you know in the world of strip plank kayaks and things, everybody right now is like their hair standing on end because oh, that's too thick, it's going to be heavy. But you need to have some. You need to be able to bang the thing up.
It's
And
gonna be a
it's a
work
work boat.
yeah. So I would say 3/8, and the trick is you don't need beads and coves either. And if I could borrow
Okay.
your writing stick,
It's my calculus.
it's wonderful, excellent. Yeah. So like a great way to do this, and I'm stealing this from people who are better at this than I am. You cut the strips in cross section into a kind of a what is that, a trapezoid or
Parallelogram.
parallelogram? Thank you. That's. And then all
1
right.
year of engineering.
All right, so and so here's your molds as you go, and then so the angle goes up, and then the next strip along, it
Sets in there.
it draws it in, yeah, right. So all you have to do is set your table saw to whatever angle this is,
Looks like 16 and a half
Okay.
degrees
Okay.
to me.
something like that, and so and then and this is one of the cases you can actually use tight bond glue.
Yes.
Which is really what you want to do. And, you feel, oh my gosh, it's going to have a gap because these are straight, but it actually, with 3/4 inch wide strips, this will, as a practical matter, that gap will be almost nothing. So, so 3/8, because it's cedar, which is light, and because it's a dinghy, it's going to get banged up. So, and then, width-wise, I would say, 3/4 of an inch. Which is that's about
from tip to tip,
It's about 1.5 kilometers, I think.
or a 3/4 inch face, or
Yeah, so a 3/4 inch face. So yeah, that means like after your
Yeah.
your
Oh,
so-
okay. Okay.
So don't cut 3/4 inch strips and then go back and do the angle. But
And then you're saying 3/8 for thickness
yeah,
here.
3/8 there. That's around about a quarter of a gram, I think, something like that. Milligrams? No. Anyway, I'm not good at metric. So
It's about that much.
Write that down.
yeah, right.
John always likes to go on these little interludes over into metric and make stuff
Yeah.
up so that it riles up the Europeans.
Well, I mean, not just the Europeans, pretty much the rest
Everybody
of the world.
else.
Everybody else.
Not everybody else. We stand with Myanmar.
Myanmar.
Oh.
Myanmar still uses the imperial units. Now you know.
Now you
So
know.
Myanmar and the
not
United
know
States. Yeah. So
Then,
we're not alone in this.
How about frames? Because we
Um,
probably don't need this many frames, or
No,
probably
certainly
as
not.
big as he has.
Certainly not.
1/4 by 1 1/4 white oak.
I would here. So this is different. So you're going to be creating a monocoque shell.
Yep.
So you're going to get really a huge amount of your strength is going to come from just the shape of the boat and the fact that it's glass on either side. And in this case, I would go a little bit on the heavy side. I would probably say 6-ounce glass on the inside and outside.
Okay.
And you might double up the glass just on what I would
On
call
the
the floor pan.
Yeah.
And that goes, you double it up on the inside because glass is strongest in tension. So, a rock trying to punch through, if you've put the glass on the inside of the I-beam, so to speak.
So I have built the CLC tenderly dinghy.
Bless you.
So what you're saying, basically, that's exactly what that.
Right.
that
So it's
boat is
got its extra glass is actually on the inside,
Inside, right.
where the glass can be in tension when you hit something hard.
Yep.
So exactly the same thing. So so now frames. You don't need many, and such as you need, you should make part of the boat's furniture, so to
Yes,
speak.
right,
So,
right.
I think you could have as few as 3. And
Like from here to here.
yeah, kind of like one at the front of this
Yeah.
back seat, one there and one there, and then have some floors like the Tenderly dinghy.
Yeah.
Like kind of some intermediates, and that'd be minimal.
So
I
what
always
are-
think about dinghies and dinghy parks just being kind of mushed from the sides.
Yeah.
So I mean, it may be that you decide
one
to
of
have
the
more
things
frames.
Steve would like it is to be unsinkable.
Oh yes. Right.
So one of the things we had thought about was at the back seat here, putting a bulkhead all the way across, so that it was a watertight container. And then the same thing up here is that we would make a watertight space in the front. So then we're only talking about this much that frames will even be visible.
Yeah, it'll still be flooded. It'll sit deeply. So I guess if it were mine, I probably would make the center seat almost twice as large. So larger than functional, but so it has a structural frame at the front and back of it, and it gives you all that volume too. And at this point, now you're self-rescuing.
So you're
and
talking
even
about
if-
this being an airtight chamber
As well as the
So I don't know
ballast.
how you feel about
Yeah.
the floor then being. I mean, you're really limiting throwing your ducks and your fish and your.
There's still
wild
quite a bit of
boar.
floor.
The other thing too is if we made the stem and the stern and midship there as not voids that are filled with foam, but watertight containers,
Right.
then
Storage,
that would be
Yeah.
that would be fantastic.
Right, so, I
Because
mean,
one thing that we'll definitely do
this
is
would be nice.
Robin and I will take this tender on upriver and into the backwater adventures, and I could easily see us throwing a week's worth of food and gear and the two of us and loading this thing down and disappearing for a while. So having watertight storage in there, would be fantastic.
Yeah,
I don't think that would be bad at all.
You're not going to lose much floor. I mean, you're going to lose, 8 inches of floor, something like that. But you can put a watertight, and I would say maybe 2 watertight hatches, so you're not
Yeah.
sitting on a hatch, which is not comfortable.
Cool, yeah.
But you could fill this. Just the center one is going to have a lot of volume. It'd be a great place to stash gear of all kinds.
Right.
As
Yeah.
long as we have this 2-foot space for the hatch to rest.
Yeah, so
That's good. Yeah, right. Okay.
we need
so,
the 2x2 hatch to go in. Yeah.
So that's a great thought. So maybe the width to the seat is added forward.
Forward is totally
and
fine.
now maybe it starts to incorporate some of the dagger board.
the dagger
trim.
board.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
just at a glance, like you could stand to move this trunk back so that it's centered in there. In terms of balance under sail, I don't.
Well, especially if we're going to shorten it.
Well, yeah. So that's just proportional, though. So, but the dagger board's set pretty far forward, and I think the reason he did it was just to make to give you more leg room, which is perfectly fine. But anyway, So now we have 4 full height bulkheads. They'll have little knees that come up, and all the way to the rail, and so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's going to be fine for getting banged up in the dinghy park and so forth. And those are filleted and glassed in place, and they're just. But they don't have to be plywood if you guys want to.
Well,
There won't be plywood.
No, we have these beautiful.
Okay, no, that's great. So
Yeah.
you can do kind of like just make plywood out of wide diagonal strips. I mean, you've got some thin
Tell us
stuff.
what we have.
So when we disassembled Victoria, we have a whole bunch of hackmatack knees.
Like
knees.
grown
Tamarack
knees.
knees, larch
Oh, I see.
knees.
Oh, so you're still talking about the knees. I'm like, okay, so you're going to grind those up and make particle board, or for the plywood, or no, yeah. Well, so you can so you can leave the bulkheads at seat height.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to use plywood, which is perfectly hip, then you can, take like 5-inch wide and 1/8-inch thick veneers and just glue them into sheets big enough. And
That's
then
what I
cut your
did to
bulkheads.
do the bulkheads in
Right on,
the
yeah.
sailboat.
Which
So
is-
in
that's-
Arabella, they're
Yeah.
1/4-inch oak with a 1/4-inch cedar core.
Which will be too heavy for your dinghy,
Dinghy, but yeah,
same
no.
idea.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Cedar.
So-
Yeah,
and it
or
can be,
mahogany.
Or mahogany.
it can finish out at a 1/4-inch thick, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
so make your own plywood, which I think is great, and I think it'll be good. Yeah.
How about sheathing? Bob was thinking maybe sheathing it in Dynel. Do you think fiberglass is better? What are our options?
The only reason
there?
we thought about Dynel is it would have a more classic canvas cover look to it.
It would. It's just not fun to use in wide strips. And like, okay, so it gives you the kind of non-skid thing. Is what I think you're talking about. But that non-skid fills with grit and dirt, like right now. So as soon as before it even gets out of the shop. So, I tend to use Dynel strategically in areas of high wear. Like down the center line of the keel of the thing or something like that. And then.
So is it tougher than glass?
Much so. Yeah. It handles abrasion is what it's good at.
Yeah. So how would you feel about just the outside of the hull being Dynel and the inside being glass?
I'd feel somewhat uneasy because the thing is, Dynel requires a lot more epoxy for a given weight. It's like fabric, and that's what I mean. It's like soft fabric, and so it bulks up as you, and so it takes an awful lot of epoxy.
And then we're just going to adding weight then,
Yeah, but not necessarily adding, torsional strength, really. I mean, compared to e-glass. Maybe it's a bit, I guess maybe it's probably a little bit stronger in tension, but I don't ever hear of it being used structurally. It's used mostly to create non-skid decks and things like that. So I don't think a non-skid exterior of the dinghy is a great idea unless you're going to spend a lot of time walking on the outside of a dinghy.
Yeah, right on.
I mean, if it's, if you're clinging to it like, someone in a Winslow Homer painting, maybe having that non-skid, exterior of the hull.
That's what the skeg is for.
Well, yeah.
Should we just coat the skeg in Dynel?
When she's upside down, you can hang on.
Yeah, I mean, you can, most of the boats in our booth have a strip of Dynel. Of course, I'm looking at it. Oh yeah, I can see what closest to us there. It's got basically a strip down the center. So when you drag it up the dock.
And can you add the Dynel over the fiberglass?
Yeah, sure.
So you could glass the outside and run a strip of Dynel.
Yeah, you could actually do them at the same time. I mean, you could put the glass down and wet it out, and before the epoxy, while it's still green, you can put on a strip of Dynel. And
yeah, I mean, I think
keep in mind
Dyneling the skeg there and fairing that out and making that super tough and rugged
you have to hate yourself to actually want to sand Dynel very much. So that would be a great application to use peel ply or release fabric, just to get a smoother, so you don't have to grind the transition between the Dynel and the fabric.
Mike at Total Boat's going to be right there with the peel ply.
Yeah, Mike loves the peel ply. Well, the other thing is, we're gonna paint the outside.
Does peel ply leave a texture?
Super fine texture.
Yeah, it's like 220 grit.
Yeah, so it's already been.
It's lovely. Yeah. It has its limitations. Like it doesn't do three-dimensional shapes all that well. I mean, it tends to like a two-dimensional shape because you don't
put pieces.
You can put pieces, absolutely. I mean, you're going to have a little bit of a joint, but still, if you're trying to cut down on sanding, and you tend to get a less resin-rich layup, so when you use Dynel, so you tend to get all the strength without too much weight and a lot less sanding. It's kind of a win all the way around. Again, on small round shapes, it's probably going to, it's not going to want to do that, but you'd have to cut darts or use patches or something like that. But any time you can use peel ply or release fabric to do it, it's expensive, but if your time is worth more than a shilling an hour or whatever, then you're going to get the money back. So.
And then we can probably do the skag. Just if we're going to glass it, we can just build that up out of cedar instead of oak and keep the weight down.
Yeah. So the way I handle those is that it's it's epoxied in glass into the boat, but it will lose the glass the very first time you pull it up a beach. I mean, a beach is like 36 grit. So what I do is have an external strip. I call it the worm shoe.
Yep.
That's a very it's a very archaic term, but it feels fun to use
No, I put-
colonial era term.
so we
for
could
I
put
put
on
worm
boats.
shoes on Arabella. There's sacrificial
Right on,
oak
yeah.
on the stem
Yeah,
and
so-
the deadwood in the stern.
I mean, literally
Yep.
just a half-inch strip of oak would be perfect. That
Or,
just wears and wears and wears,
or
and then you
locust.
replace it at intervals.
Yeah.
We've even used Heaven Forfend, starboard.
I was gonna say that might be a good place for some HDPE.
Oh, we have
Right,
some of
yeah.
that, don't we?
Yeah, that's a high wear area, and
Yeah.
and of course the stem. But that's where Dynel would go. And another idea is, which would look very classy, is kind of brass half round,
Yeah.
We talked
stuff
about
like that. Yeah, I mean it's around $1,000 a foot, I think. But
We've got a decent supply of it from the boats that I've scrapped.
perfect. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I mean, that would even here.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean that
Be a
takes
nice
care of the
sharp little-
Yeah.
That takes
Yeah.
care of the wear on the
That's
skeg as
the
well.
ticket.
It looks nice too. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that'll be very pretty. Yeah. Another thing, if this boat's going to live upside down, you might think about putting some rub strakes at kind of the halfway out, just through about the middle third of the boat.
Okay.
Right there on the exterior, to take wear when you pull up on a beach or something like that. And one of the things that I like about those is that when you're going forward on the boat, you can make those into grab handles too, so that you know what I
Okay.
mean. So the boat's upside down on the
Yeah,
coach
yeah.
roof,
Something to
Yeah.
pull it over, yeah.
and you
Oh, yeah.
it's a handle, So
Yeah.
Because you're going to be flipping it over.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, when
It's
you
for carrying up a beach too.
Yes.
Grabbing
Yeah, you can
both
grab
sides.
underneath on either side. Yeah, that
could
makes
do.
sense.
I'm thinking they're probably more underneath, so that they
They'd
also
be-
function as rubbing strips or
Yeah.
strakes, on the bottom. But
So, like when you pull her up on a beach and she lays on her side,
right,
it
right.
rubs
Just
there.
right there.
and
Gotcha.
I mean you don't want to make extra drag for rowing and sailing and stuff like that. But if you make them a little bit deeper in the in this, not this deep, but it gives you
Yeah.
while it's on the boat, it gives you an extra grab handle. So, I don't know. Maybe the boat's so wide that you don't need that. But I've seen them where it's actually literally a grab rail, with like handholds
Yeah.
cut out.
Ah,
But that that has to leave some pretty nasty vortices on the when you're rowing or sailing. So that's probably overkill here. But I think it'll be very, very pretty.
And then, do we need to put in like the stem and all that, or does that become?
Yeah, you want a stem
Yeah.
in a strip planked boat. So it's normally laminated so that it can't shrink or swell. It's going to be enclosed in your epoxy envelope. So
Would it be okay to use a false stem?
absolutely, yeah. I'd have an inner stem and then strip it, and then have a false stem outside of that.
Okay.
You just trim all your strips, run wild, and then you
Then trim
trim
it
it,
off.
and then put a false stem on. That's the typical treatment. And also, the seat riser thing. I mean, you're not going to need that if you're going to make tanks, up front and the back. So you can safely leave that out. Although I've seen strip plank boats that have a riser like that. You actually notch that into the molds first.
Okay.
And then your molds are covered with masking tape so they don't get glued into the boat. But you do glue this mid-height thing in. But if you're doing tanks, that I think you should leave that out probably.
Mm-hmm.
Although for tie down of gear and whatnot.
Now that's why you do this.
Handy.
You do
Yeah.
the so-called scuppered or spacered inwale.
Oh, you
Yeah.
tie
Which-
gear
And we
down
can
to the
lash to
inwell.
that.
That's right.
Oh, that's
It's
right.
it's
yeah.
it's all the rage, and it's basically a fake, inwale where you can where there were
That's how
the
they-
tops of frames.
Right, that's
Yeah.
how the tenderly dinghy.
You just
is.
put a
Like
little
we were talking
block
about
in there.
yesterday.
So
Yeah,
so
like
that
we were talking about yesterday.
those
Yeah.
those
Visually, it looks like that.
Yeah.
visually it looks
Yeah.
like that, right? And it has lots of virtue. You can tie things to it, and
Yeah.
and this, I mean, it sounds trivial, but like when you want to tip the rainwater out of the boat,
Yeah.
when you
Oh,
tip it up
yeah.
on edge, like all the rainwater goes out
Out.
rather
Yeah.
than there being a puddle that stays underneath.
That makes
the
sense.
inwale. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and this, I don't know why this drawing isn't. Yeah. So yeah, in this view here, you can see it's got some really solid, sturdy rails. So I would make them at least as substantial as Tenderly's, and maybe more so given the boat's usage. So, just for banging.
Well, and so
Well,
I don't know.
Just wondering if we want any frames at all in it.
It sounds like we don't really need it.
We
Because
don't
if
need
we
it.
do the bulkhead here and
Bulkhead,
here and
And
here,
this is wider.
yep.
Yeah, I would, if it were mine, I would have knees that come up from these tanks,
Like this.
right? You know, like this,
Yeah.
because it's the, you know, the dinghies get mushed
Yeah.
But
between
that's
two other boats.
perfect
or,
use for the
you know, like
Hackmatack knees.
Yeah,
You
well,
can
that-
split
that-
those in half, and you.
Use
I mean,
those
I think we've got like.
them being on the top, where down here this bulkhead will be that.
in lieu of
uh,
like frames, right?
yeah, and then these
Right,
will.
so you've
Yeah.
got-
You'll see
you'll have
these.
four
Would be
boards.
beautiful.
Four of them.
And,
Yeah,
and this
I mean,
could
that
even
seems-
and
be a
there's
white
three knees
epoxy
to
too.
keep the
Yeah.
keep the
If you
rails
wanted,
from.
especially.
Yeah, I've seen these
Collapsing
boats. You know,
crushing.
if the bulkhead comes this high, and then I've seen the top side stove in.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because the
Nothing
dinghy
to
got
support it.
and
Yeah.
while you were locking through to the Great Lakes or whatever, it got between
Bang.
the mothership and the side of the lock, and
Yeah.
you know,
Crush.
mushed. So yeah, that is a failure mode. Something like this. And these knees could be just they should be quite thin. I mean, maybe as thin as a half an inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that are out of there, they're about maybe 1.25 inches, look like, or maybe a little bigger. They're probably bigger.
Yeah,
that-
but it
that-
even be
that
They
bigger
would
be
be
than that.
fine
easily
for
be
your-
able to slice them
Like
and
your 32-foot gig
Yeah.
could have inch and a half
Yeah.
knees, but this
I mean, they
half inch or so.
came out of a 36 footer,
Yeah.
32 footer, 32 footer.
yeah, it's going to be a nice looking boat, and
Yeah.
floorboards are an awfully nice thing. The floorboards are going to add a lot of weight, but you'll just be delighted that you put nice floorboards in there,
Yeah.
so that you you don't have to put the groceries down in the bilge water.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned just having some so-called floor timbers, that are filleted in place.
Sure.
And, everything's inside the epoxy envelope except maybe the floorboards, which could be some nice bare or oiled wood or something like that. And once every couple
I
of
don't think
years,
you want
they're
mahogany,
just
but-
screwed down so that
Yeah.
you can
Take them
Pop
out.
take them
out,
out, refinish
yeah.
it.
And these will stop,
Yeah, they'll
Here and
be
here.
discontinuous. Yeah.
and so they'll look like one.
Yeah, just don't forget like a hole big enough for your pump.
Well, it would be really nice, since they're going to be discontinuous and they're not relying on strength, is if we put, like you were saying, John, a little support floor on either end,
Yep.
and then had these basically like on a trailer bed, where they sit in and they get locked fore and aft, and they get blocked port to starboard, and then we can just put a little cleat over either end, and then I can just pop the cleat out, flip the floorboards out, and there's no screws to take out, and that way we can take them out and clean underneath there
I don't know.
almost daily if we really wanted to.
You really
So,
wanted to.
so
It's gonna get
My
gross.
Haven has, next to the
gonna
next
get
to
gross.
the centerboard, there are two sections
Yeah.
that are just. They just lay in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would screw them down because I don't know what the inside of our tenderly looks like underneath there. I'm sure I want to know, but you could just have a just a centerline section that lifts out or something like
Yeah.
that. But make
Figure
sure
it
that
out,
it's
but yeah.
make sure that it's locked in because they float away.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's that.
There is that. Yes.
Yeah, there is that.
They do float away.
Oh Lord, they coming.
Oh boy,
Here they come.
here they come.
School's out.
School's out.
All right.
Stripping party.
Teacher, let the monkeys out.
Well, I think we're wrapping up here on time. So
Well, yeah, that people will be fascinated just by this part of your project, and I think it's an opportunity to show off, how you can make a beautiful Atkin dinghy in the 21st century. And,
That's
very
our
practical.
goal.
that's the goal, yeah.
That's the goal.
Make sure it's slathered in epoxy and that no, water can't get in someplace and
Yeah, right.
start to sit and rot.
And then for scaling it, should Bob just proportionally move all the stations a little closer?
Yeah, just do it proportionally. I mean, along with my suggestion to have at least
More in there.
Yeah.
molds every 12 inches, but maybe more than, you're just going to loft in.
Yeah.
You're going to have to loft a bunch more stations in there.
That's okay.
That's fine.
So, what about rib band? Could I use less stations and use rib bands?
Not in strip planking. I mean,
Okay.
they're longitudinal strips, so it's like
Oh, wow.
they're
Yeah.
ribbons,
I was,
So
I was
right.
thinking of frames going on top of it next.
Right. Yeah. So
Never
nothing
mind.
like that. So
Okay.
yeah. And
You know what you-
add an extra.
You know what you
an
could
extra one
maybe
up the
do,
back.
instead of making a bunch of extra molds, is what if you made the molds and then let in ribbons onto the molds and then ran thin strips around. Basically, you get what I'm saying?
So
So that you had a whole bunch of little vertical supports going, and those were connected on ribbons that were you basically make a basket.
That's
instead
take
of-
like 3 times longer.
You think than just
having
making
a
the
bunch
molds?
of-
I mean,
I also got to
you're
remember
almost
that this
talking
is so
about
short
cold
and so
molding it
small.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
yeah,
You went
what,
straight to the big one.
I'm
so
straight
you're
to the
like-
big one. I'm like, so you're gonna make like 37 molds? I'm like, oh my! No, you're right. It's
Yeah, I
so
mean,
small,
that's no big
and they're
deal.
they're they're so
that's
narrow.
how you
Yeah,
would,
you're
in
right.
fact, cold mold the boat. If
Yeah.
you want it, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, I don't want
people do
cold
big
mold.
dinghies that way, but again, that's the road, man. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
hard way to build a boat. It uses a lot of material, and a lot of it ends on the floor. I
And
did a
then you have
couple
to
of cold
cook
molded
veneers
boats, and
and-
I promised myself I would never do it again for the rest of my life.
Cold molding. Yeah, I don't have any desire to do it.
Yeah, that's good. It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Well, thank you so much,
Yeah.
guys. This is super informative.
Great. Well, for getting me up this early, I hope I get a ride on your fabulous wind ship one of these days.
Yeah.
You can have a coffee mug.
Thank you.
There you go.
Congratulations.
The Art of Boatbuilding. That's nice.
And Bob made this hammer that I don't quite. It's
It's
super
a wicked bad
wicked
hammer.
bad
I don't know
hammer.
why.
I don't.
It's a ninja nunchuck.
It actually does look like it could do some serious damage.
I think it could.
Does
Yeah.
it have lithium batteries?
It will. When
So
it's,
it's
done, it
rechargeable.
will.
It's rechargeable.
I heard those are dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I've got hammers that have an extension cord coming out of them, but then you've got to run an extension cord. And,
This, of course, is
tangled
just an
boat.
example how this gooseneck works. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
instead
that's
of bringing the entire
You
boat.
gotta, you gotta make 2 goosenecks.
You can use
right?
it in the dinghy now.
Did you make 2 goosenecks? Or is that the
could.
gooseneck that you're
I
gonna
could.
Oh,
use?
that's
You
your
just
one. You
No,
just
this no, I didn't make 2.
yeah.
You know, if I did, I could probably sell it pretty easily.
Yeah.
I would think.
As a business proposition, if you wanted to pump those out, I'd buy 50 tomorrow.
50, yeah. Well, unfortunately, I don't think you'd like the price
Yeah, well,
because the amount of time it takes me to make one,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah,
not a
it's-
production shop.
It's the gold plating that especially.
Yeah, the cold plating.
Well, we had a lot of people
Yeah.
join us from all over the world today. We thank everybody who joined us. And thanks to John and Bob and KP and Steve for a really beautiful conversation about Bob building our dinghy. And of course, we're going to tap John all the time for more information about it. But thanks for joining everybody, and thanks to the person who commented. I feel like I'm watching the Marvel Universe version of boat building, like I'm watching Marvel characters, but of boats.
I'm not sure.
Is that good?
I think it's good. You're a superhero.
I think that's what that means.
Oh, jeez.
So, and we
Not-
should
not at
mention that
7
I'm
in the
going
morning.
live tomorrow at 10 Eastern Time. So we will try to continue our discussion just slightly, not to this in-depth.
You got it. But over on Bob's channel, The Art of Boatbuilding, which please go immediately subscribe.
In the worst.
Yeah, and go check out Chesapeake Lightcraft. They've got all sorts of really cool designs.
Yeah, beautiful kits, and I like to think of CLC as democratizing boat building. You can build right at home, and
Thank you. That's very nice.
and yeah, well, it's true, man. So, thank you so much for joining us. And as a parting thing, I think we're just
I
gonna
have $3.
stare at this boat right here.
And if you're around this weekend,
Seriously,
come find us
holy
at the
cow.
show.
Please
Come by.
do. Right, we're in if you want to check the map, we're at a place called YouTube Alley, is what they're calling it. We're next to the Thomas
Yeah,
Oyster
above us.
Company
He's not taking it
building.
away.
No, I mean,
It looks like this.
No, he's, yeah.
No, he has a bunch.
No, I've
And there's
got a whole
Robin working on
No,
our
you-
computer.
you
Yeah,
can
no,
have
I'm
that.
good. No, that's because I love it.
But thank you so much for joining us today. Mystic is looking really beautiful. We hope you come down to the show and say hello to us on this afternoon from 3 to 5, tomorrow from 3 to 5, and then on Sunday from 9 to 11. We will be here in the booth. We'll have some things that you can get, you know, as far as merch is concerned. And we're so glad that you joined us. We're looking at Amistad as well over there. That the double-masted, the twin-masted schooner. Thank you very much, everybody. And happy Friday to you.
You didn't 3D print comments. I mean, it can be done, but yeah.
3D printed, and then I did, which was a traditional artist, was lost. I did lost